This meeting to order. It's a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, held November 13, 2014, at 6 p.m. at the Cottonwood Recreation Center. Deputy Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pratt.
Here.
Councilmember Garrison.
Present.
Councilmember Dowling.
Here.
Councilmember Alinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Hauge.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pfeiffer.
Here.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Items for discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. Item number 1, comments are limited to a 3-minute time frame per speaker. And Matt will be our timekeeper, and he will, you'll hear a little beep when your time is up. This is a public hearing regarding the proposed amendment to the city's water and wastewater rates, charges, and fees. Mr. Rodriguez?
I'm over here. I'm trying to get this program
Okay.
run up to you. Give me just a second.
Mr. Rodriguez will give us a short presentation, and we've had 2 or 3 presentations. 3?
3.
Yeah, 3 presentations for the public over the past few months, and quite a bit of detail. So this will be a synopsis of that detail.
Yeah, I thought the consortium didn't do as good. The consortium, but I thought there was a.
Yes, Mayor and Council.
Yes.
Yes, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go briefly through a presentation. We've done this before. I kind of cut it down a little bit. And in the previous meetings where we've had this presentation, we have not had very many people watching it, and I'd like to go ahead and make sure that whatever public is here today gets a chance to hear what we have to say about the utility rates, because we have presented this similar presentation over the last few months, and we haven't had much of an audience. So I'd like to make sure that what little audience we do have here today gets a chance to hear it out. We'll start off with the municipal, the water system for the city of Cottonwood, and wanted to point out a couple things that came out in our newspaper. And I apologize, Council, this is the only place we have a board, and you've probably heard all this already, so please indulge me for a little bit. Several things have been said in the newspaper about the city of Cottonwood and how we went out there and we went after Cottonwood, all the different water companies in the area. And quite frankly, it's far from the truth. We were actually approached by the various water companies to be acquired by them. And some of the reasons that they did come to us was, you may recall back in 2006, 2007, and prior to that, we had arsenic standards kind of bubbling to the top, and there was no true technology at that time to actually remove arsenic out of the systems. And we didn't know what the costs were going to be. They didn't know what the costs were going to be, and they were a little concerned with having to deal with the arsenic systems that were being developed at that time. The technology was unproven, and the cost of the system, of course, was unknown. We, on the other hand, took it upon ourselves that regardless of the cost, it was important to make sure that we provided safe water safe supply for all of our constituents, including those in the Verde Valley areas. Other things that have happened prior to City of Cottonwood was they had annual outages and warnings of outages, warnings to conserve. We still have warnings to conserve, but in our case, in the present case, it's more along the lines to make sure that we don't have any outages. We've been real fortunate that we haven't. We do encourage conservation. About May of every year, we put out our signs asking people to kind of follow a schedule, but we have not run out of water or requested that we have cutbacks of any sort.
Conference.
And despite our effort to make sure that we had a relatively good system when we acquired them, the systems were very ill repair and they were leaking like sieves. Main valves had not been exercised or plotted for many years prior to that. That's one of our first priorities, was to plot every single valve that was in the three systems and later the fourth system, and also to exercise each and every valve. If just in case you're not aware, exercising keeps those valves from sticking. Many times you may find yourself where you try to cut off one of your water valves, and it is hard to turn that thing. In many cases, they start to leak and break. Well, the same thing happens to our valves. They have to be exercised on a regular basis, and we have a company that comes in and does that for us. The city found over 300 valves that had not been mapped on the three systems and on the fourth system, there's four systems that we acquired. And many of the meters were not functioning properly. We had to go through a big meter replacement program to make sure that we were actually accounting for a lot of the water that was going through the system. Contrary to a lot of popular belief, the three systems that we originally purchased were not all in the county. We had Clemenceau system within the corporate limits. The other two, the Cordis Lakes, was intertwined with some of the city residents. And then, of course, the other one, the Verde Santa Fe system, they came to us to acquire the system when we were acquiring the other two, and we went ahead and took them on. One of the reasons that we took them on was because they didn't have an adequate water supply. We had to go ahead and rebuild their storage tanks and also drill an additional well to make sure that they had the supply that they needed. The city it was really important for the city to preserve its future, both inside and outside the corporate limits, and we did so by acquiring the three outside systems and then later Cottonwood Waterworks. Wanted to mention several things that the city has done. Besides acquiring the first set of water systems, which was the Cordis Lakes, Clemenceau, and Verde Santa Fe for a little over $13 million, back in 2004, we acquired the Cottonwood Waterworks and split that with Clarkdale, who pays their portion of the system, for nearly $24 million issue in 2006. Since then, we have not sat on our current supplies back then. We actually acquired the Spring Creek water system for $825,000, and that secured our water resources to the north of Cottonwood. And then in March of 2010, we acquired the Quail Canyon Water Company. Both of these were with no debt. It was all based on our resources that we had at the time, and that was specifically to support Verde Village 6 and 7. Besides the nearly $900,000, we spent $160,000 to link that system up to those two areas, and those do not provide water for Cottonwood. They're specifically for those two units. And the 2004 that is currently being refinanced to get a better interest rate will be paid off July 1st, 2029, and the 2006 bond will be available for refunding in 2016, and that will be expiring on July 1st, 2035. Wanted to mention some of the things that are in our covenants is we are required to make sure that we have sufficient resources available to not only operate the system but also carry a certain amount of money available to our debt service. And all of our obligations are paid through water revenues. We do not pull sales tax to pay for our water debt or operations. We do not pull any other fees except those that specifically are to the water system. We do have some legal provisions, which are our covenants. We are required to maintain 135% of our annual debt service after we have paid off all of our maintenance and operational costs. And basically what that means is if we have, let's just take for example, $1 million worth of debt service for that year, we have to have $1,350,000 cash available in the bank after we have paid all of our expenses. So as you can see, that's a pretty big chunk of change that we have to maintain above our debt service. The city of Cottonwood is also very enthusiastic about conservation. There's a lot of things that the city has done to encourage conservation. One of them was the rate structure. About 3 years ago, we went ahead and when we raised rates, we also adjusted our tiers. We went from a 3 to a 4 tier base. Part of that was for conservation. The other part was to assist those low-income people where they had a bigger amount of water. They went from 4,000 to 5,000 gallons at the low rate that didn't change. So we were able to accommodate a lot of low-income people, but at the same time, we started pushing the upper users into higher and higher rates. The staff tracks their water usage variations and follows up on any high water usages. And what that means is, many cases, if you have a sudden spike in your bills, many times our water utility maintenance staff or the administrative staff don't wait for you to come in. They will actually give you a call and ask if they can come in and check, or can they provide you with certain things to make sure that you don't have those types of spikes. Many times it is a problem where a toilet may be running, one of your sprinkler heads may be busted and running. So the staff actually makes an effort to make sure that they contact people when they have spikes in their bills. We've had well upgrades with electronic pump drives, and we've also used, that's our way to go ahead and avoid spikes in our pressure. And what we've done is, rather than having a pump that runs a full bore all the time, we have variable pumps that actually, depending on where the pressure lies, it will speed up when there's a need, and it will slow down when there's not a less need. We've been building up a conservation fund over the last few years, and we've started to use it. And the thing is, contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not just for those people inside the corporate limits. They will be available for those outside the corporate limits also. Same way with leak detection tablets. That's a way to help you find leaks, usually in your toilet bowls. Those are available for free if you just come by the offices, and we will happy to provide you those. And those things, once they start going, if you don't pay attention, can run up your bill really, really quick. Other things is the utility department has been very active in visiting with a lot of the schools, elementary, middle, and a lot of civic groups to raise awareness of conservation. They also contact a lot of people on a one-to-one basis. They will sit down and help you out any way they can to make sure that you can cut your bill. There's a lot of ways that we suggest that you use water wisely, and they're more than happy to sit down with you. They also encourage low water use landscaping, which has been incorporated in several of the city landscape projects. And there's several websites and that are available. Both these presentations, but this presentation is available on our current website, the City of Cottonwood, under the Utility Department. And there are a lot of websites out there. There's just two that will help you conserve water and resources. The City of Cottonwood, we believe, has been a real good steward of its finances. We've acquired 2 additional water companies without any bonding to make sure that we have adequate water supply. We did commission the Clemenceau system. That was 3 well sites due to their inefficiencies. We were not getting the production out of them that we needed, and it was going to be too costly to re-drill. We actually were able to hook them up to some of our redundant systems, and we're no worse for wear. We increased our capacity over the last few years by nearly 1 million gallons, something we didn't have in the past. And we did that by not necessarily purchasing additional tank storage, but we actually moved some of our tanks from one location to other locations that were more strategically placed so we could go ahead and continue to gravity feed. We improved the capacity of most of our wells, pumps, and our booster stations. And then over the last few years, we have added 6 fire hydrants inside the corporate limits and 16 out in the county to make sure that both inside and outside residents have some sort of fire protection. And this doesn't end here, because we are always looking for better sites to put fire hydrants in, both inside and outside the corporate limits. We have a portable generator that is available for backup for our county website, county sites. Most of our sites already have generators, but we do have one as a backup in case we have any problems. Our arsenic system is totally compliant at all of our websites, all of our wells. And we've reduced our water loss in the system from 45% to 11%. Initially, we're also talking about savings to the water systems. Initially, we were saving over $300,000 by maintaining our own system rather than having a contractor coming in and do our arsenic systems. Recently, we just decided to buy out the systems, and we will save $1.3 million over the length of the contract just by buying them out rather than leasing them and then acquiring them years down the road. We moved storage tanks to more strategic locations, which I mentioned earlier, rather than purchasing new ones. And we've brought most, if not all, of our current engineering in-house, and what that does for us is we don't have to contract a lot of our engineering out, and those engineers are also able to work on other projects, which of course also saves the general fund's money. I want to go ahead and kind of preview the water rates as we have proposed them in our intent to increase. In our structure, as you can see, this is what I have side by side, our current rates versus our proposed rates. Roughly, it's about 6% between the two systems. The one section we did not change was a water resource development fee. That remains the same for inside and outside the corporate limits. And those fees are to make sure that we have secure water sources for both inside and outside the corporate limits, and that we also protect our legal rights, as well as provide conservation monies for people that might be interested in doing some sort of conservation project. I won't go through all of these. There is an example that follows, and we're looking at the low end versus the high end or middle usage, average usage, and as you can see, in the inside the corporate limits, the increase for 5,000 gallons is $1.40 a gallon.
Can we lower the lights? I really can't even hardly see them. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Much better. Thank you.
Will that help?
Yeah, a lot. Thanks.
And I know these numbers are a little bit small, but for inside the corporate limits, the increase is $1.40 for 5,000 gallons, and outside the corporate limits is $2.08. Pretty much a fairly small increase between inside and outside. For 7,000 gallons, the increase for inside the corporate limits is $2.68 for 7,500 gallons, and $3.51 for outside the corporate limits. And 7,500 gallons is about average usage for most people. 5,000 gallons is pretty conservative, and of course then you have people like myself that use a lot more than that and pay a lot more than that. I wanted to touch base on reasons for the differential rates, why we have different rates between inside and outside the corporate limits. There were differential rates before we even became the Cottonwood Waterworks. All the different systems, we have the Cordis Lakes, we have the Verde Santa Fe, the Clemenceau, Cottonwood Waterworks. They all had different rates depending on their needs. So the differential rates is not something new for Cottonwood. The distances are far greater when we're servicing lines as well as pumps and other equipment outside the corporate limits. Obviously, the corporate limits is the city boundary, and anytime we go outside, we traditionally have to go through hillsides and, of course, further distances in our corporate limits. And we carry a lot of liability when you go outside the corporate limits. The terrain in much of the villages is very different than that inside the corporate limits. and which makes, of course, our repairs quite costly. The water utility is a public utility owned by the citizens of Cottonwood. Excuse me. When the utility borrows money for infrastructure, whether inside or outside the corporate limits, it's the citizens of Cottonwood that actually bear the risk of the new debt. If there's any problems with it, any kind of infrastructure issues, and we have to borrow money, it's basically falls on the backs of Cottonwood if there's a problem for Cottonwood residents, if there's issues with any type of new debt. Inside the city, about 70% of the system is fed through gravity versus booster pumps that are used outside the corporate limits. And when you have booster pumps having to maintain pressure outside the corporate limits, especially the Verde Santa Fe area, the Verde Village area, we find ourselves having to use a lot more electricity just to keep those pumps constantly going. Obviously, gravity fed is a real big, it was really big cost savings for those inside the corporate limits. Approximately 60% of the leaks we repair are in the county, mainly in the villages. Verde Santa Fe doesn't have that big of a problem only because they are a newer system, but we did plow a lot of money into it initially to get that system up and making sure that it had sufficient water resources for those residents. And whenever we have to go out into the villages, we have to deal with 3 7,200 volt direct bury APS lines, which means that we have to call APS to come join us and make sure that we don't disturb those lines, and it causes a bit of a grief for us because it can hurt some of our employees when we're digging across those lines. The meters in the villages, unfortunately, are in small overgrown backyard easements, which makes meter reading a little bit difficult. Many of them are also in people's yards, which makes it, of course, a little bit challenging for us when we have to go out and deal with some of those systems. There's also more wells, more wells in the outside the corporate limits than inside the corporate limits. As an example, there's 14 outside the corporate limits. There's 7 inside the corporate limits. And they all have to be monitored. Out of those 14 outside the limits, 13 of them have arsenic systems, and they all have to be maintained, which obviously it involves quite a bit of cost, time, and effort to make sure that they're all up and running and handled properly. The leak figures outside the limits used to be higher, except that the city of Cottonwood initially invested a lot of money into upgrading pumps, variable speed controllers out in the villages in order to avoid a lot of the water hammers that were happening and busted water lines. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the city of Cottonwood went out and purchased Quail Canyon water system exclusively to serve the Verde Village 6 and 7, costing us over $1 million just to serve that one area. The next section is about our wastewater system. That's all in the corporate limits. Want to kind of give a brief history of how this came about. The whole idea started back in 1987. And this was an all-new collection and treatment system. Obviously, things have changed. It's not all new, and we're now incurring more and more costs. At that time, we had a 1% sales tax that was created for the construction, improvement, and operations and maintenance of the system. The initial rate on the water system back then was $6.75. And in all those years, it really hasn't grown very much. There's only been 7 increases since its inception. The last increase had been in 2013, October 1st, after 12 years of no increases. And over that 12-year period, this fund used up nearly $3 million worth of reserves. Go ahead.
Would you like Terrence's water? Thank you, Terrence.
The proposed rates are right in front of you. We're looking at an overall increase of $2.90 monthly for residential and multi-residential. Our commercial, on the other hand, has a little bit different rate. As you can see, those two numbers, the depreciation rate and the O&M rate, those are can you move back one? I just want to point out that one. These two numbers that you have over here that number right there is what will be used for the commercial rate based on anything over 5,000 gallons. Okay, so commercial rate, this is the beginning of a commercial rate. Obviously, theirs will be higher if they use more and more water. Residential rate is $29.15, and the multi-residential will remain $29.15 per household. You know, we always are talking about things how we spend our money and stuff, and wanted to put up a couple of things that we kind of take for granted, but we are real quick to look at our water system. Inside the corporate limits, a gallon of water will cost less than a penny, 8.85 of a cent per gallon. Outside, it'll be 0.9, less than 1 cent a gallon. Gasoline, $3.45. It's come down a little bit. A gallon of milk, $2.49. No biggie. Wine, $45 a gallon. You know, if you buy the box stuff, maybe a little cheaper. Coffee, $14.45 a gallon, $15.45 a gallon. And we don't bat an eye to go out to Starbucks and pick up a cup of coffee. I know I don't. I don't worry about a gallon of milk. Quite frankly, I don't worry about my water because I also know how cheap it really is for the city of Cottonwood and all of our residents. But I wanted to go ahead and point out the bottled water. It's almost $1 a gallon if you buy the cheap stuff, $2.99 for 24 cases. That's $1 a gallon. Think about it. If you're going to use use this at $1 a gallon, you're talking over $4,000 a month. But yet we buy this water all the time, and much of this water is actually municipal water that has either gone through a smaller filtering system, and in many cases the water is considered to be unregulated and is not considered to be as safe as municipal water that is heavily regulated. And one of the things that we kind of take for granted is that the system is up and running and we don't need money. As long as we can flush our toilets and open up our tap and water comes out and it's not muddy or it's somewhat clear, we're in good shape. But in reality, the city of Cottonwood is probably in relatively good shape, but you know, without maintenance, it's going to get really bad. The WIFA, Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, did a presentation, and they looked at the nation's water supply and wastewater, and overall, both of them are rated Ds. Much of the systems are old. They've been run down. So many of them have been around for well over 100 years, and many of them have not been maintained almost in that period of time. And so there's going to be costs involved, and the city of Cottonwood is no different. However, the city of Cottonwood made a great effort when they bought the water companies. We borrowed extra money, and we've plowed a lot of money into the ground. It seems that water and sewer is one of those things that is out of sight, out of mind. As long as water keeps flowing in both directions, both in your home and out of your home, it's not a problem. But in reality, Cottonwood has done a great job, and we believe that it's probably not at a D rating, but without the proper resources, it can get there relatively quick. We're really pushing to make sure that we have the water supplies, healthy water supplies for all of our residents and all of our customers, both inside and outside the corporate limits. And that, Mayor, takes care of this. And I'd want to go ahead and just mention that we have discussed this in previous meetings, but we didn't have but more than a couple people at those past meetings, and I want to make sure that the audience we have today at least has some takeaway from this, that the city of Cottonwood is not being frugal with what they do. We are not we're not raising rates just to raise rates. We are actually doing it because we do have a need, and we are bound by our covenants that we had, and quite frankly, we're about the middle of the road when it comes to rate. If you start comparing all of our northern area neighbors, we're not by no means the highest, and we're not by no means the lowest. I won't say that we are, because we're not. But we do maintain our systems, and we need these resources in order to make sure that our system doesn't deteriorate any further. And as a matter of fact, it needs to go quite the opposite to improve the systems that are in ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, if you would come up to the lectern, please.
For this gentleman.
Yes, if you would come up and...
This is probably an ignorant question, but I'm wondering, and I'm not saying it's bad or it's good, but why is Cottonwood City responsible for county water? I come from Los Angeles, and it's not that way. It's county is county and city is city, so I'm just wondering if you could explain that to me.
It's not an ignorant question. We've had this one before, but the issue here is that we acquired the companies originally. They came to us and wanted us to buy them. How Los Angeles deals with it, I don't understand how they do it. Of course, Los Angeles was small at one time and has now grown, so they may have acquired those systems. We, on the other hand, acquired those systems because they asked us to, and when we took them over, we realized we had our hands full trying to make sure that we could bring them up to standard, maintain, and also meet all the arsenic standards. It's not uncommon for Arizona municipalities to have water systems outside the corporate limits.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
It
Mr.
might be
Bartosh?
important to add to that in the state of Arizona, counties don't have the legislative authority to provide water and wastewater services.
What they do is that they must create a taxing district, like your fire district that you pay taxes to if you live in the Verde Village or Verde Santa Fe. You have a taxing district for your fire department, so you pay a special tax for that, which Verde Village residents could do. You could go out and create a separate taxing district like your fire district is, and you could purchase your water company.
Yeah, I was just wondering initially why.
So if you could come to the lectern, otherwise people in the television audience won't be able to hear you.
Why Cottonwood was interested in purchasing all of these outside the city limits, but I think what you just told me sort of answered that. Essentially, is it that if the city didn't provide for the surrounding area and county that nobody would?
Well, the
Is that it?
companies could have been sold to anyone. It could have
Okay.
been sold to a foreign investor.
Why did Cottonwood wish to purchase them?
We purchased them because part of our city was in the Verde Village. I live in Verde Village, and my water company was Cordes Lakes, the same as it was for everyone in Verde Village. So it was, and Cordes Lakes was very poorly maintained, very poorly. They had a lot of leakage, and they weren't able to maintain their system. It was a very small private water company, and they could not pay the arsenic fee. So we agreed to go ahead and purchase all of it that included part of our city.
I see. So there was overlap in the boundaries?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is a public hearing, and we want every member of the public to have an opportunity to speak. There's some forms to sign there, so we have a record. Thank you very much. So what I would like to ask is that we use the 3 R's, which is respect for self, respect for others, and responsible for all our actions. And because some people who come here aren't really happy about having to speak in public, and they can feel very intimidated by that, I would ask that you not clap, so that everybody feels that they have a possibility to speak without that kind of can't think of the word I'm trying to use, sorry. So first we have Roger Dagnalt, and we have Daniel, and we have 3 minutes. And Roger is from Cornville.
Yes, I do live outside the area, and many of you know that I've been coming to these water meetings or rate increases. And now maybe I took it out of context, and you know, I'm sorry if I did, but if I heard the last speaker, he said that the risk in the bonds in the water are on the people. So if there's any problems with the system or the bonding, it goes back to the users. And I guess my question is, we don't get to vote on the rate increases, whether you live in the city or out of the city. We have very little input, and yet the council and the management of Cottonwood makes those decisions for us, but lay the blame on us or the liability on the water users. So I think that has to be looked at. And again, still, no vote if you live in the city or out of the city on the rate increases, the bonding measures. And if I understand correctly, since you had applied for the bond and they lowered the rating, the city of Cottonwood continued to spend money, and I believe they still don't have the bonds that they were hoping to get. Now, maybe I'm missing something here. Also, when I get my water bill, I don't see anything other than the total amount. I don't see the breakout like they used to have on it. And if I understand things, we're still paying a 1% tax, $5.38 in fees, and the state tax, and I don't see that. I would like to have my old printout put back on the water bill, because that's all I get. And I would think that people that live here in the city that have a rate increase on their sewer bill would also like to see that put on the sewer bill. What are the new charges going to be? We don't know. But we heard that we have to have 135% of the money in the bank, or 1.35. Well, isn't there another 10% also on top of that? That's been spoken of in previous meetings. So I believe that we will continue to see higher rates every year as the rates for labor in the city for the workers to maintain them will continue to skyrocket. No matter how much we've upgraded them, it still is going to need constant service.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments.
That's 3 minutes? Oh, man, I just got started. Thank you.
Thank you. Malcolm Otterson? Affiliated with the Verde Valley Property Owners Association.
Yes, the what place that you live? You say you live in the Verde Villages.
I do.
Okay, what village do you live in?
8.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. Everybody's drinking bottled water. How come it's not tap water?
Mine's not open. I drink tap water all the
Okay,
time.
great. My understanding, good, I'm glad to see that. Everybody else is drinking bottled water. How often do you test the quality of the water that's coming up in the Verde Villages? For example, I understand now that Verde Village 6 pump, there's a lot of people who have white water coming out of their faucets. Just want to know, how often is it tested? How often and how thoroughly is it tested? That's it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
Do you want to answer afterwards or
I can
respond?
take these as a
Okay.
comment. Roger, I'm going to need your help on the last one there. What I mean by we are responsible, we're the responsible people, those in the city of corporate limits, is that much like we co-sign for our kids, we co-sign for them as long as they make payments. There's not a problem. But the bottom line is, if something goes wrong, they fall on those citizens of Cottonwood, and we've already noticed that just by the simple bond rating decline that we had over the years. We're looking to do some refinancing on it. We're having to go to WIFA because we'll be able to borrow on the state's credit because our current water credit is not good enough. Does that hurt the citizens outside the corporate limits? No. They are using, if the county's going to bond for anything, they go on the county. It does affect us greatly, and yes, we are responsible for it. Whether we look at it that we're all users, no, there is a difference between corporate and in-corporate and out-of-corporate users. As far as the 1% tax, this keeps coming up, and this is a fallacy. There is no 1% tax. They keep confusing this 1% tax with the tax we extended from the sewer that sunset, and we kept it going over the years because we wanted to build this beautiful facility, extend our library, and do other things like put in this parkway that we have here. So it's not like we went out there, and this money does not go to the sewer. Again, I can't mention enough that we only use sewer revenues to stay with water and sewer revenues stay in their enterprise fund. We don't use water and sewer for general fund, and we don't use general fund money for either of those two funds. As far as us going out for bonding, that's currently in the works. We're looking for WIFA to try to save us some money over the term of the 2004 bonds. When we refinance them, we're looking to save about $1 million over the term of the agreement. This isn't like going down to your bank and signing and you get all this cash and people walk out and just give it to you. It's a process, and it's a long, lengthy process, and it involves attorneys, and it involves financial advisors, and it involves bidding it out, and it involves meeting with bondholders. It's not a matter of just going out there. So yes, we've talked about bonding over the last few years, but it hasn't happened. There's been issues. Again, the downgrade was one of them. The other issue is it doesn't just happen overnight. We don't just go borrow money from the bank. As far as the 10%, I have no clue what the 10% is being talked about at this point in time. That's all I can say about that one. Now, the water quality test, that's where I do believe we meet all the state standards. So if there's an issue, I think maybe Roger can go ahead and answer that particular question.
Give it my best shot. Madam Mayor, Council. First off, the white water the gentleman spoke of, that's an indication of air entrained in the water. It may or may not even be coming from our system. Sometimes we have repairs we do. I'm sorry. The white water the gentleman spoke of is an indication of air that's trapped in the water system. It may or may not be coming from our system. It could be the residential plumbing. When we have repairs, we have to open the line and cut the line and make the repair. Air gets trapped in it, and it needs to be flushed out. It comes out somewhere, so it's going to come out in the faucets in the houses. It's pretty common. Sometimes we do it through fire hydrants and such, but out in the villages, there just aren't that many hydrants available. So air entrained in the water is not an uncommon problem. The quality tests. Depending on what particular constituent we're testing for, it could be done weekly. It could be done several times a week. Chlorine is something that's tested for several days out of the week. Arsenic we test on a monthly basis. E. coli, this kind of testing is done on a monthly basis. We test constantly, and it's a rotating series of tests through the system. We have special ports we've put in the system that allow us to pull samples. We go into customers' houses and pull samples for lead and copper testing. We're a very highly regulated industry, and testing and the requirements that the state and federal government put on us is just a constant goal we have to meet, and we meet and exceed those tests. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
The gentleman that spoke first, were you thinking that the liability he talked about fell on the shoulders of the Verde Village people or Verde Santa Fe? Is that what?
No, I understood it as falling on everybody.
No, it falls on the shoulders of the citizens in the corporate limits of Cottonwood, not on the people in the outlying areas.
Either way.
But I thought that's what you were thinking, and I just wanted to
I thought
clarify.
it fell on everybody, and
That's what
thanks for the correction, but I feel sorry for the people in the city then.
Thank you.
And that is a point of contention for some, is that they have shouldered the burden for people outside the city for several years. Margie Johnson from Cottonwood.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say I've lived in my house in Verde Village 7 for 34 years. I had Cortez Lakes water until you guys took it over. I never had a problem. I never had an outage until today when I came home and I had no water. I tried to call the water company, called every number listed, no answer. I had to end up calling Kyla to find out what was going on. So the phone system needs to be fixed at the water company. But the reason I'm here is I want to know why Cottonwood Water is the only utility who doesn't put taxes and fees on their bill anymore. Anybody? No one. No answer.
Roger. Wait. One at a
my
time.
3 minutes.
Roger,
Why?
would you please stop the time so that Roger can answer the question and then proceed?
Hi. I was told there's no room. I have an old bill. I have a new bill. This is the old bill. There's room down here. I've also seen the bills from the city with the sewer. All you have to do is scoot this up a 1/4 inch and you can put all the taxes and fees. We are entitled to know where our money's going.
I agree.
So when am I going to see it?
We're working on it. There's a problem with the format. We have a new software
Oh, I
system
know.
and new bills.
Yeah.
And we're limited. We're limited in the amount of information we can put on the bills.
There's a backside.
There's an additional cost. Everything has a cost. We print on the backside of the bill, doubles the cost of the bills.
Well, mush it up.
We've talked about smaller fonts. We've talked about rearranging things. It's a template, and we don't control that template. We control the information that goes on it, but as far as moving the boxes around, that's not within our control. That is part of the software, and we don't have the capability of changing that. But we're trying hard to. We understand this. We don't like it either. This is a better method that shows all the taxes that you pay. That's a much better method. I don't like the fact that people have questions about what they're paying. I want it to be transparent. I want everybody to know.
Yeah, that's all right. We need to know where our money's
I
going.
agree with you 100%.
Okay, so thank you very much, Roger. I think that explains it. We have like a 1/4 of the room that we had, and part of that is that so many members of the public ask us to combine their water and sewer bills, which I think we completed with this software or are ready soon to complete.
We've completed it with the software. It's the software has certain parameters, and it's causing us some problems trying to print everything that we know. We've been working on it
I've said my 2 cents. I just want to see it on there. I want to know where our money's going. And I really liked Cortez Lakes water. And the experience today was, Kyla knows she took the brunt. And does anybody answer the phone at the water company? Or do you have to punch all these little buttons and then finally it said to punch 0 to get to the operator? All I got was, after it rang 3 or 4 times, the little operator that says, if you want to make a call, please hang up. So nothing was working.
And we do, as I understand it, we do have someone that answers the phone after hours, Roger?
This was at noon.
It was during the day. What happened was they were getting so many calls for this exact reason that she was being bumped off the system to elsewhere, and they are having a problem with the system that redirects them to another line. Roger knows that. I spoke with him about it today, and they've had that in the past. They just need to figure it out. Our text went down right away as soon as I let them know. But because there were so many calls coming in at the same time, that's why you were bumped.
And do we have any mechanism with our phones to be able to leave a message for the citizens calling?
No, she would push 0 to go to leave a message, and that's when she was getting completely
Well,
bumped.
to get a message. Well, we could do that through the CNN program, couldn't we?
You mean kick it out to everybody? That would be
To everybody
Roger.
that's
Yeah,
off?
he said yes.
So we'll try to do better in the future.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And we can still take our bills to put them in the little slot? Don't have to mail them to Phoenix? And why do they go to Phoenix? I beeped. Can you answer as I'm walking back to my chair?
Sure.
Some of our
Rudy, if you would, for the television people, our audience.
And you'll probably be seeing more of that in the future because we're going to a lockbox system, and the whole idea is to try to keep costs down. It's actually more cost efficient for us to send it down to Phoenix, okay, than to actually take it here, process it here, have an armored car and take it down to Phoenix, and then get it to the bank. It's less expensive for it to go straight down to Phoenix, and then they process it, and we don't have to pay.
What if you can't afford the stamp anymore?
There's other options. There's bill pay options through your bank. You can go through ACH, and you won't have to put a stamp on anything. Then you can just drop it off. That's all I can say.
Can I ask a question?
Sir, you've already had your turn, and other people that want to speak are saying that they'd like their turn. Okay, Susan Cox.
I don't mean to be pushy.
That's okay.
It's okay. Or short. My only question is, what's the base rate? Now, you showed a slide. I spent about 45 minutes looking through the code to try to find the base rate, never could find it. My sister spent 15 minutes on the phone with the water company, and finally the lady blurts out, "It's $35, lady. What do you want me to do?" And that was pretty much it. But the base rate is not. So why is the base rate is $23 and some change?
I could have to put the slide back up.
So why isn't the base rate on the bill? I know we have a problem with the bill. I get that, software issues. But even on the old bill, I didn't know we had a base rate until I saw you want to raise the base rate 6% and the water usage 6%. Is that what I read?
Yeah, the base rate is key.
Sorry.
Thank you.
The base rate is keyed off of the 5,000 gallons. That's the minimum that you have. So it's easy to calculate off of that's what I showed with the number up there. That's basically your base rate. Up to the first 1,000 gallons. The first 1,000 gallons is your base rate. You get the first 1,000 free. Anything above that, you start paying whatever it is. Thank you. No, you would be paying $4 for every 1,000 gallons. You would go from $3.77 to $4 per 1,000 gallons. The base rate is this amount right here and that amount right up here. Your base rate inside the corporate limits is $30.37. Inside the corporate limits will be $24.76, and outside the corporate limits will be $32. That gives you the first 1,000 gallons. That's your base. After that, it starts based on these rates over here.
Okay, so why doesn't it say that anywhere on the bill, anytime, what the base rate was.
I don't do the bills. I don't even know if it shows the base rate on those bills.
It's Roger's fault.
No, it's not Roger's fault. It's just that we just go by the amount of gallons and we calculate it from there. The base rate just comes up. I wouldn't know exactly how it calculates it, but it calculates it based on your total water usage. It doesn't take the first. I think it does show the first 1,000 gallons, and then it shows the amount after that. You'd have to bring us our bill to look at. I haven't paid attention to my bill for some time.
I have my bills with me, but
Okay.
maybe you could post some of that base rate in, that slide or whatever you call it on the website, on the city site.
It is there.
All of this is on the city site. It has. It has been for months.
But where?
It's actually on the front page on your sidebar. It shows all the information on the sidebar.
I missed it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a link on the sidebar.
On the sidebar. All you
There's
have
a
to do
link
is
that
go
takes you
link it, and it
to
tells you where
this, and it's also in today's packet on the internet. The council's packet that we get, the city council.
I didn't
packet.
check your packet.
Okay. So it's
Okay.
in several places, but I'm sorry you didn't find it. I know what you mean by
It's
websites
frustrating.
that are. I
Yeah.
spend hours looking for things myself sometimes.
But the big question is, are you raising the rate 6% on the base and 6%
Yes.
on usage?
Yes.
Okay, so my contention is you need to post the base rate on the bill or somewhere, because we need to know that.
It's posted on. That's why we have the comparison.
That is not anywhere near what we see monthly. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you too. We appreciate your comments. Mary Jewett. If there's anyone else that has not spoken who would like to speak, please bring up a form, and we will be sure that you get a chance.
I just wanted to know when the rate increase goes into effect. Is it calendar year or fiscal year? Do you go January to December or July to June 30th?
So Rudy, would you want to please answer that?
It doesn't go by calendar or any year. Traditionally, our rate increases happen on October 1st. Okay.
Which is your fiscal year?
No, it is not a fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay. We start. That's the way we've got everything set up. In October 1st is when traditionally our rates start to go up. This year, because we had some delays initially with our budget, and then we had some delays with the newspaper not posting some of our stuff, we ended up delaying it to all the way to December, to December 1st. So there's really, usually, traditionally, it'll be on October 1st.
Okay. Then I also had a problem with the software, okay? I would offer you a suggestion, the next software element that you buy at the hospital. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone?
That last question.
Okay.
Just for information purposes, when we dealt with the software, we did have committees, and we try to cover every base. But we went to a new software now that actually goes out and, excuse me, I keep giving you the back, but the software is called an enterprise resource planning software. It doesn't encompass just utilities. It encompasses finance, utilities, planning and zoning, permitting, business registration. So it's an all-encompassing software. So it's a massive software. And we did have a meeting with all the different users. Unfortunately, when we start putting a lot of things together, certain things got past us. We sometimes get stuck in the minute details. How does this actually work? That we forget that some issues out here. Again, we're working through some of these things. There was a letter that went out to every single customer that said, yes, we're going to have issues. This is when we're going to try to transition. Please be patient with us. We're trying to work them out. And that's all we can ask, is that you be patient with us while we try to work out some of these kinks that we have in here. The bills are not incorrect. They just don't show the data that you'd like to see, and we're working on it.
Thank you.
You know, at the hospital, we had all the units, all the departments. It took us 6 months, but we got what we wanted. Okay.
Ma'am, and I understand, it took us 18 months to get this software, and we did a lot of planning and a lot of training for it. It was just something that we're still working on, and I'm sure there were some glitches there too that you might not have been aware of. There's some glitches that we're just now coming to our attention too. So we're working on trying to get those things fixed, Mayor and Council.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that, and appreciate the citizens' concerns and comments on that. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken that would like to speak? If not, we'll close the floor to the public. Yes, sir.
In the ball cap that wanted to speak, if you could let him finish up, still early enough.
Oh.
I believe he raised his hand to speak and told him to wait. Has he spoken already?
He's the first one.
Roger.
Yes. All I wanted to ask.
Would you come up to so the television audience can also hear you?
Well, I'll give him my backside then, I don't know. I just wanted to ask, if we're looking at, say, saving the money and could you put both the bills in the same envelope and not exceed the postage needed to mail those? And how would that hurt if, we had, say, the old bill? I mean, you're coming up with a new bill on the sewer rates. So, I mean, you could slip that, I would hope, into the same envelope that the water bill goes out in and have the room, on the backside or the bottom.
You don't get a wastewater bill.
No, but I get a water bill.
Right.
So I mean, for the people outside, if we could continue with the old one, I mean, the postage to go outside isn't going to be any more by taking information off. And inside the city, if you could put both the bills with the necessary information, say, for the inside the city area, I don't think the postage would cost any more or exceed what is needed for that mailing. And I think that would really satisfy everybody.
The old system is gone.
All right, then we need to take the old system, put it back to life, and incorporate it in the new system, if we can do that. That's all. I think that's all any of us are asking.
We appreciate that. Rudy, aren't we doing that? Haven't we combined the bills? Is that what you're talking about,
No,
Roger?
he's saying he's running redundant systems so you can print two bills out and put them both in the same one.
We integrated the bills. It was something that we had been working on since we acquired the first set of water companies that were inside the corporate limits. Was
because we had a lot of citizens
sewer.
Commenting about that.
The issue is we've integrated them. They take up a lot of space that they've got, and even though it seems like we have a lot of white space, when it comes to programming those things, that white space gets taken up for some reason or other, and we're trying to, again, fix the problem and try to show a little bit more data. But we've been working for years to integrate the water and wastewater bill. That's not the issue. The issue is that we just can't seem to print enough data on there for our customers to be comfortable with it.
But as you said, you're working on it. You've heard the public. A lot of members expressed their concern tonight, and you've heard them, and you're going to work on it.
Yes, we're going to try to get that thing squared away.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll close the floor to the public. Are there any comments from the council on this item? Yes, Mr. Otterson?
We closed the floor.
Well, we did close the floor to the public. And I have council members that remind me of that sometimes, so. Okay, so the next item is resolution number 2768, amending the city's municipal water and wastewater system rates, fees, and charges. Any comments from the council? And I think he could go ahead and speak on this item. Mr. Otterson, even though the hearing is over, you could comment on this resolution if you like.
I'm sorry.
The resolution number 2766.
68.
Oh, 68, sorry.
Well, I had a completely different question.
Is it something that we can answer after the meeting?
Probably.
Okay, we'll get with you. Okay, council, resolution number 2768, any discussion on this item? We've discussed it for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 meetings in the past. Any other comments, additional comments?
I'll give one just
Yes,
real quick.
Mr. Dowling?
I wanted to comment on this. I've kind of been turning it over my head for a week or two. And I just really wanted to put forth, I've heard some of the sentiment that, why even bother to show up, the decision's already made. That's really not the case. This isn't, our new system isn't necessarily, we're reevaluating this every year now because we went for so many years without an increase, which put us in a hole. And then we had to climb out of the hole, which isn't good or happy for anybody. Now we're back on a system where we're trying to implement this every year to go through and review this and try and make it as open and transparent as possible. And this didn't just happen overnight. Like Rudy said, it's been an ongoing process since the last time we did it. And it's going to be happening every year. And there are committees and groups that are meeting about it every year to reevaluate. And so I just encourage everybody that's concerned about it, to be involved with it throughout the year, not just kind of when the vote comes. And that was really it. Just to say it's not so much made up overnight, or our minds aren't made up instantly without input from the citizens or even non-citizens. It's just been a long process, and we're holding these. And I don't want anybody to think or feel disenfranchised by the fact that we've come to a conclusion without your input, because we take all your input, and it is valuable to us for the next time we have to go through the same process.
And I would just like to say that we had a committee and we asked Verde Village residents to participate. And if you would like to be on that, I guess I would just add that this isn't even really about Cottonwood, but it's about the whole United States. And I've attended so many water meetings. I'll wait until you're finished. Are you finished? Mr. Otterson? Mr. Otterson? I'll wait until you're finished speaking because only 2 of us can speak at a time.
Got the floor, of course.
There has been an issue.
This is a new item.
Yes, new item. And
I'm trying to give you an opportunity
I
to
appreciate
speak.
that. There's been issues with people who have had their water turned off for lack of payment because they can't afford it. Catholic Services has said that they will pay some part of it, but the city is charging turn-on fees and shut-off fees and other penalties. What provision does the city have to take care of providing water to these citizens? These people who live in the area, and the city has shut off their water. I want to know, what provisions have you set up? Or do you have any set up? My understanding is you got nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. So I wanted to talk about just the whole United States water systems. I go to all kinds of water meetings. I've been a member of the Water Advisory Committee for more than 10 years, and it disbanded here this past few months. But I think that if you really study water infrastructure in the United States, and that was Cottonwood when we purchased the systems were aging, and a lot of them are reaching their useful life. And the American Society of Civil Engineers 2009 report card for America's infrastructure, as Rudy said, is a D. The report card found that 7 billion gallons of clean drinking water are lost each day because of leaking pipes. And one of our citizens talked about Los Angeles, and we all have read what dire straits California is in with their water supply. So I can only talk about me personally, but I'm grateful every day that I can use electricity, that I have water to drink, that I have wastewater services. And I'm on a limited income. Believe me, mayors don't get paid a lot. And just like a lot of our citizens are. And I consider, water as a very important utility, something that I can't live without. So given these problems nationwide, federal funding for water infrastructure improvements is critical. So if you do anything, contact your federal legislators about participating in water projects and supporting water issues in the Southwest, including Cottonwood and the state of Arizona. So the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency estimates that between 2000 and 2019, the gap between our needs for water infrastructure improvements and what we actually spend could amount to a total reaching $263 billion. And this number could rise with increased demand for water over the next 20 years. So water in the desert is a very, very precious commodity, and it's really fairly inexpensive for how precious it is in the desert. So that's just something I wanted to kind of share with everyone, and Rudy essentially did share it already. Randy? I was just wanting to answer this last gentleman's question. You asked about what contingencies or what provisions we have for helping people pay for their water. Every year the council provides money to the Catholic Social Services based on their need to help pay for those water bills. So we give them $10,000 a year with the ability to up that another $5,000 should they need it. I don't think they've actually come back and asked for that second $5,000 for the last few years. So there is provisions that the city does make to help people offset their fees. But a bill is a bill, and the cost of service is the cost of service, and that does have to be paid by somebody. But we do make provisions out of our assets or out of our income to help those people pay those fees if they can't do it on their own. Okay, so, sir, please. This is not a place to argue with the council. You had your several opportunities to talk, and so we do appreciate that you're here and shared your feelings on that. Okay, so council, any other questions or comments? Oh, okay. Yes.
I just want to say that I think the general public understands that water rates are going to go up, and obviously at some point they have to go up. I think my concern with this whole deal has been from the very onset is the fact that we have these different rates inside and outside of the city. My personal feeling is that we're all in the same water system, we're all ought to pay the same rate. And I've been through this before, just my feeling. When I was on the council and we decided to purchase or go after the water companies, that was the whole idea back then. I was in on the ground floor when we went through all the meetings and research and so on and so forth. I just feel that we did it for the entire area, and the entire area should be treated the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and after staff's presentation, realizing that it's under $2, I just don't see that it's that different, but I do appreciate your thoughts on that. Any other comments? Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution number 2768.
Second.
Councilmember Elinsky made the motion. Councilmember Dowling seconded it. Please show by raising your hands those in favor and those against. Okay, so I think it was 6. Was it 6? Okay, so the resolution passes. And Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2768 by title only.
Resolution number 2768, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, amending the city's municipal water and wastewater system rates, fees, and charges. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Who did that?
Me.
Okay. The mayor made the motion. Mr. Garrison seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And if anyone would like to talk with staff, please feel free to do so. Or council.